What up, guys? Welcome to the Just Pearly Things YouTube channel, and welcome to the sit down where I bring on guests to talk about different topics. Today's topic is feminism in the church, and I brought on four of the most educated people on YouTube on the whole entire platform. So, I'd like to go around to start. Give me you guys' name, channel name, and just a brief background. Starting with our new regular on the channel, Rachel.
Hi, Pearl. I'm Rachel Wilson. You guys might have seen me on Pearl's channel. We've done 2 shows together. I am a wife and mother of 5. I wrote a book called Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation. And I have a Substack and a YouTube channel.
Do you want to go, Jay?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm Jay Dyer. I host the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show every Friday. I have a YouTube channel, Jay Dyer. I've written 4 books, 2 on symbolism in Hollywood and 2 on philosophy and religion. And you can find my work at jaysanalysis.com.
Glenn, do you want to go?
Yeah, my name is Glenn Lawrence. I am a former youth pastor. I got a degree in religion from Liberty University. I am an actor, producer, director, and I have a channel on YouTube, Glenn Lawrence Presents. Check it out. Yeah.
And then Tim.
What's up, Pearl? I'm Tim Gordon. My YouTube channel is Rules for Retrogrades. I've written 4 books, one of which is The Case for Patriarchy. And I do shows on feminism in the church and a whole bunch of other things I've written books on. But I'm really happy to be with you today.
Okay. Thank you guys all for coming. So the reason I did today's stream was because I noticed patterns in things, okay? And I just noticed some really similar like speech patterns to feminists in especially like Christian non-denominational churches and just different like youth pastors I would see on YouTube, but I couldn't really describe it like what it was and like what I was seeing. And when I had Rachel on the other day, she was telling me there was a history of feminism in the church. So I wanted to know like when was like the earliest, I guess, like feminism like infiltrating the church? I don't know the best way to ask this question.
You know, if you read the 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 Losing the Good Portion, I think it's Leon Pohl's book on the church. He dates it back to Aristotle. And a lot from there is kind of where the research that I gathered that you see a lot of feminism in the church. Now, Tim and I'm sorry, I forgot your name here, but probably have a different interpretation or understanding on it. But for me, from my research, I gathered it from dating back to around the 1800s, around Aristotle's time. Now, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, actually, Aristotle is 400 BC, and he writes a great chapter. We cite it all over this book on friendships between unequals, and his paradigm example is that a husband and wife can be best friends because they're unequals, because the husband is owed submissiveness. The funny thing is, in the 3rd chapter of Case for Patriarchy, I say mid 1800s, there's a very stark beginning point, which is called the Seneca Falls Convention, which was a convention led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton in upstate New York for feminists. They had a Declaration of Independence, and it's the beginning, the advent of first wave feminism. Every single point that you see in 3rd, 4th wave feminism is there enumerated at the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention. So I agree with you that it's mid 19th century, but they say they want women in the clergy. They need women out of the homes. They need women to be sexual miscreants to match the miscreancy of men, and all the other points that you think, and not you, but everyone out there thinks, because they're brainwashed, is associable with only radical feminism. It's nonsense. It's all there in first wave feminism, but it is a 19th century thing. You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, so I'm confused because you were saying Aristotle was or wasn't a feminist?
Not at all. No.
I wouldn't say he was a feminist, but I think his writings like gave allusion to or allowed people to build on this like trope. And I'll pull it up here. There's this book I'll pull up here and kind of.
If you think he's a 19th century thinker, you're probably thinking of someone else. Aristotle's a fourth century.
No. Yeah, no. Like I know where it's from the Aristotelians, or like the like the group of people that followed his work. The Aristotelians kind of took this and ran with it. Where is it at here? I'm gonna pull it up and then share it with you guys here in a minute. I'm sorry.
Maybe Jay can give his take real quick while you're looking that
Yeah,
up.
while you're doing that,
Yeah.
so one thing I would say is that right before Aristotle, Plato did teach in the Republic a pretty radical view of equalitarianism. And so in the Republic, you have this idea for the middle class that the guardians are all equal amongst themselves, and that includes women, and they will share property. So you get this feminist sort of equalitarian view in Plato. And of course, Plato does influence Aristotle, but I think Aristotle he's pretty clear about the difference between men and women. But if you fast forward up to today, the real power is what I focus on in terms of how that could have really gotten into the church. So Tim's correct that, and like Rachel says, there were these kind of pioneer, kind of kooky women that were on the fringes of Christianity, kind of posing these ideas, and they would have conferences and they would have cults and different groups that would think, oh, we need to have women in the exact same roles as men in the church. But the way that it really got into all of this first Protestant Christianity and then the other branches was through really powerful, wealthy families that supported this and then actually wrote about it. So the Rockefellers, for example, in their authorized biography, there's a whole chapter in there by Collier and Horowitz on the promotion of feminism throughout the West and the university system, as well as the Rockefellers funding and creating the modern ecumenist movement. That's really the idea to have all the religions kind of blended into one, all the churches blend into some new kind of thing. They can't have any of the boundaries prior to that. So you can't have the distinction between men and women in the ministry. You can't have the distinction between men and women anywhere else, because all of those distinctions have to be blended into a giant blob. So the Skittles blob that we're going into was actually promoted by some of these really wealthy families. So I focus on it from the vantage point of the power elite and also intelligence operations, how the CIA and groups like that were involved in promoting this in the churches.
So basically, Plato started the idea, and then it didn't really infiltrate the church until the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all could agree on that.
Yeah,
I got that page up. If you ever want me to pull it up, just let me know.
Sure. Let me see. I'm just trying to learn.
All right, so I'm gonna. Oh, you have to disable sharing.
Oh, how do I do that? Let me see. Sorry guys, I'm a woman. I don't know how to do that.
Pearl, you would love Aristotle. Actually, he says that a woman is an imperfect man, and this is repeated all throughout the medieval tradition. Aquinas says that it drives the Catholic feminists nuts that a woman is an imperfect or an incomplete.
Women don't have souls. The medieval philosophers. And I'm just joking.
Yeah,
some of them said that, but
I shared it. I think you can now, Glenn.
All right, cool. Here we go. Screen 2. Here we go. So, as you can see here, here, let me move this out of my way. It's in my way. Hold on. There we go. For almost a millennium, Christians have tended to see their primary identity as feminine. It all started with Aristotle, whom all being consistent with the form upon the matter which the form is imposed. He claims that the male was completely formed, the female was relatively lacking in form, the female was more like the matter and therefore was able to receive new form. If the male seed has been able to impress its form completely on another female matter, it would also always produce a male. If it did not impress the form completely on the matter, it would produce a female. Receptivity, the ability to receive further forming, there was therefore a key characteristic of the female and consequently of the feminine personality. And then he goes into further, the scholastics of Prudence Allen has shown that in the concept of a woman, rediscovery that Christianized this Aristotelian analysis of the female, but unlike Aristotle, saw women's natural receptivity as an advantage. In order of grace, Christian Aristotelians taught that women is above the man precisely because of her relativity unformed nature. Prudence Allen explains that Mary herself became a kind of material that was formative power of God. Her perfect identity as a non-resistant material for the working of the Holy Spirit led to her complete absorption of the wisdom of God. Therefore, St. Albert the Great, it followed that Mary knew everything that God knew, which I don't think that's true, personally.
No. So this book is kind of about an Aristotelian Christian
Yeah.
sect, a heretical sect. Yeah. And going back to the earliest times, like everybody on the panel has kind of agreed, there's always been these heresies, these little heresies that included feminism. And they've always been around and they've always been used to kind of subvert. But I agree with Tim and Jay and with Glenn that it was really the mid 1800s that this really picked up, because we, for the first time, had these ultra wealthy philanthropic foundations and families, just like Jay was talking about, that came out of the industrial age. And because they had unprecedented money and power, they thought, okay, let's take these big institutions that are so influential, like the Catholic Church, like the Protestant Church, like the Orthodox Church, and we will infiltrate them and co-opt them because they are so influential. People will really follow what the church says, right? So one of the ways they started to do this was through forming NGOs or philanthropic foundations. And these are basically huge entities that allow them to wash money, we'll say, large sums of money, and then use it to infiltrate. So one way that this happens specifically would be the Luce Foundation. The Luce Foundation is probably one of the biggest organizations infiltrating churches. And they started in 1968 to really kick into high gear with this, with something called the Luce Professorship Program. And over 30 years, from 1968 to 1998, they placed 72 new faculty appointees at 50 plus colleges and universities who they knew, based on, whatever their PhD thesis or master's thesis was, were people who were pro-feminist, who wanted to bring feminism into the churches. So what they'll do is they'll give you a professorship, they'll give you a research grant, they'll give you a position at a university. And from that position, these people can influence the entire culture through these huge influential institutions.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in defense of the Roman Catholic Church, which is really badly infiltrated now, if anyone's not checked the news lately with Pope Francis the last 50 years. No, really? No. But there are 8 20th century popes, beginning with like Pius X. I have a nice little Twitter thread as my pin tweet on it, saying, it's a mistake to maintain that women's rights are the same as man's. Women in war or parliament are outside their proper sphere. So you can kind of timestamp that's based Pope Pius X at the beginning of the 20th century. So we know up to then it was clean, this clean pedigree of totally what the Lesbians and the Christian feminists call misogyny in the church, based on Aristotelianism. But there is, I just wanted to fit in really quickly, Pearl, there is an ancient basis for feminism well before the middle 1800s, and that is in the Talmudic tradition. Before even Eve, Adam's wife, those who believe in the Talmudic tradition, let's just say that, they have a first wife, apocryphal to all of us Christians, called Lilith. I don't know if you're old, remember the Lilith Fair, Lilith Fest, all the Lilith from Frasier. They were obsessed with her at the beginning of third wave feminism in the mid-90s. Lilith was a demon bitch goddess that mated with Adam, and feminists regularly praise her because, unlike Eve, who got punished for sinning first and getting Adam to sin first, Lilith got away with her sin. So the feminists love her, and she's out of the Talmud. And lots of the people that are on the list that Rachel's talking about are big subscribers to the Talmud. So Lilith is a big deal. When you hear that name, perk your ears up. That is the ancient key to what we start to see getting reified, crystallized in the middle 1800s. But also Eve. They love Eve, and they're like, hey, the original sin was woman rebelling against man, a woman doing man's chore, his task, his domestic duty, and making him swap roles. It's the OG gender dysphoria. Even in the Christian tradition, forget apocryphal Lilith. Even in the Christian tradition, think about it. The original sin is feminism, a man standing down and his woman.
And it was Adam not, inserting his role.
Right.
I mean, he goes, it was the woman you gave me. And he's like, no, I gave you this command. You are in charge of her. You didn't stop her. And everybody thinks that like Adam wasn't there. No, Adam was there. It says it very clearly. Adam was there. She gave him, the apple. And it's just like, well, the biggest sin, the first sin was Adam not slapping that apple out of her hand and telling her, like, Jesus told Peter, get behind me, Satan. Like that was the first fall. It wasn't necessarily her doing it. It was him not correcting her before she did it.
Bitches passing out apples. Bitches are just passing out apples. They're just making us fall, throwing them out.
That's why we got this. That's why we got this. Everybody has an apple.
Was Lilith? I'm sorry to 12 years of Catholic school. Was Lilith in the Bible? Is she in the Bible, Lilith?
No.
She is mentioned in Isaiah. There's a text in Isaiah where she's mentioned.
But she's not mentioned
but not in the sense of like sleeping with Adam.
Yeah.
Well, then how do we know who she is?
Just a text in Isaiah that mentions a demoness or something like that.
Oh, yeah, and then later in the Talmud they really expanded on this. So whether or not she's like a real actual human figure, or what, like for people out there who think this is all allegory, I'm not here to like convince you of the of that right now, but I'm just saying, like, kind of whether she was real or not, she is the symbol. And so something a lot of people got confused on our last stream, Pearl, was I was talking about the goddess Kali and how feminists saw her. And there was a bunch of people in the comments that were like, no, we don't believe that as Hindus. We don't. And just to clarify that, I was talking about how feminists see Kali. It's not the same as how Hindus see her. It's the same kind of thing with Lilith. Regardless of the like historical reality of her, feminists love the lore of Lilith. They like the idea of her. They like the idea of this demonic strong woman who was not going to lay under Adam. That was like her first protest was he wanted to be on top of her. She wasn't having it. She wanted to be on top. And so she fled and ran away, and now she curses babies and kills them and things like that, right? So they more than anything love the idea. She stands for something. She's symbolic of this perpetual revolution of men or women rebelling against men.
Why don't bitches love Jezebel?
Well, they like
what I'm saying? Like, if Lilith is gonna get like all these props, like Jezebel did a lot of damage. She like killed people, These
goddess worship girls love all of the vengeful female goddesses, vengeful demonic spirits who are women. They love all of them. Anybody who's, they see it as she's raging against the patriarchy. She's a liberator. They see Lucifer the same way, as a liberator. So
Team Delilah, hashtag Team Delilah. Where's my Delilah fans at?
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
No, but Rachel, what they say is also, in addition to what you said, she got away with it. Lilith is the only one that got away with it. Think of all the other biblical women. They fomented a revolution, but they got theirs.
Right.
Lilith.
Why don't we have like a Team Ruth or a Team Rebecca? Can we get a Team Leah?
Trying.
Can we get a Team Leah?
Wait, so okay, question. The Talmudic tradition, like, what does that mean?
Sorry, not sure how deep you want to get into that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a long
You'll be
one.
off. You'll be off YouTube.
Yeah, it's like a rabbinic oral law that was then written down that came after 70 AD in the temple destruction, right, guys?
Right. Yeah. Babylonian period of
there you go.
Who deism. Yeah, you're gonna get kicked off YouTube, Pro. We don't want to do that to you. But it's a deep rabbit hole, and it's a pretty easy find for
it's
people.
It's better to have behind a paywall if we're gonna have that talk.
There you go.
Like, seriously.
Okay, well, there's some Talmudic tradition with Lilith, and so Lilith was like the first like lady that whore that feminists like.
Yes.
And then also they like Jezebel too. Okay.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch that they let anybody who was rebellious against men and tried to usurp men's power and proper authority are going to be figures that they like. So we're just trying to say kind of this thread, this theme, this spirit has always been there, but it didn't really pick up steam until after the Industrial Revolution. And I think the reason why is because prior to that, women needed men to do all of the we still need men to do the difficult jobs, as Pearl and I are pointing out all the time. But right now we have technology that gives women this illusion that all they do is flip on a light switch or push a button and things work. They don't think about the men who build that stuff. But prior to this, women literally couldn't survive without men. Like quite literally, physically, materially could not survive without men. Once the Industrial Revolution came along and women started getting factory jobs and things started to become mechanized, and we got these wealthy industrialists who wanted to push a very liberal agenda and use the church and usurp the church's power in order to influence society and remake it in their image. That's why we see all of a sudden in the 19th century this huge explosion in feminism in the church. And I think I would argue you see it first in liberal Protestant circles. Then they get into the Roman Catholic Church, and now they're really hammering on Orthodoxy, because Orthodoxy being more Eastern, it was a little bit shielded for longer because of the Cold War, and they've just now started to get around to really trying to infiltrate Orthodoxy.
Okay.
And see, like I think I look at it, I go, well, you know, this has been talked about since Genesis. I mean, you go to Genesis 3:16, you know, God's rendering down the punishment. And, you know, he says your desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. You take the husband aspect out of it and you look at woman and man, your desire to control men, but men will rule over you. It's almost like it's a prophetic word from God. It's like, look, you're going to want to control them. You're going to try to rule over them. But at the end of the day, they will rule over you. And when we look at feminism and we look at all this stuff that's going on in the church, God's word is not going to come back void. So since his word's not going to come back void, it's like there's peace in that. Like, okay, yeah, they're going to try to come at us. They're going to try to do this stuff. But those that are faithful to God, God's going to be, you know, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. So he will do the due diligence. God's not going to let women rule over men. That's not his order. So if his word says, you know, men will rule over you, then that's what's going to happen. You know, so there's like peace and hope and understanding in that.
I just want to make sure I understand it right. So Plato was the first one who talked about equalitarianism, but the ideas didn't really get pushed forward till the 1800s, like mid 1800s. And that was when there were families that got enough money to impose their will on society. Like before, I'm guessing there wasn't that much of like a wealth gap until the Industrial Revolution. Well, there's kings and stuff, but
yeah.
for some reason, what?
There's been rich people forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
And in book 5 of the go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, book 5 of the Republics, what everyone's talking about, what Plato, what Jay mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. He says that, like Jay said, among the guardians, the patrician class, who are only allowed to spawn with each other, like patrician with patrician, even if it's brother and sister, they should be set aside from everyone else. And he still says that men are, Plato's still a misogynist, right? He says men are better at everything than women, but the patrician women will be better than maybe some of the lower order males. That's why they're not able to spawn with them. It's also horrifying statecraft type stuff. And Aristotle's Politics is a fundamental response against it, saying, no, the family is the fundamental unit of society. The father's a patriarch. This is a big concept, right? Patriarchy means power to fathers. Mm-hmm. And so the Politics and the Nicomachean Ethics are a response to that. But really, I would say that ancient feminism is strong there in that book, which shall not be named, the Talmud, and the Talmudic tradition ran strong under the Christian currents for 18 or 19 centuries after Jesus. And then it popped out by design that Rachel and Jay know a lot about, the particular design. I just described the symptoms in my book. They describe the elites that really wanted to foment this stuff.
So the elites in the 1800s, they rolled into some cash. they're like, wow, I'm like super rich now. What can we do? And they basically started by wait, so hold on. So they wanted to infiltrate the church because they realized people would listen to the church. And so what they did was they sent they started NGOs.
Yep.
I'm guessing probably schools too.
Schools, universities are key.
Universities, yes.
And then we threw the Christians in there and then made them professors and then sent them to the church. I feel like I missed something, but
No, that's right. So, like Rachel was saying a minute ago about the creation of think tanks and NGOs, that's a little more into the 20th century. But the time period you're talking about, late 1800s, early 1900s, they got the idea, well, what we could do is we can weaponize these ancient techniques and studies like Plato's model of a republic. It's kind of a quasi-communistic society. It's a kind of a socialist society. It's a very rigid, structured society. And the elites decided, well, what we could do is study that and turn that into a technology of control. And so the advances in social sciences, in fact, sociology itself is premised on this idea of technocratic, technological control of society from people like Auguste Comte and Saint Just, who are these sort of revolutionary French figures. They figured out they could control society in this way. And so they wanted to control not just the political arena, but also the religious arena, because more people listened to religion, especially in the 1800s, than they did to politics. So these really wealthy families said, well, what we could do is we could fund seminaries and universities. And if we fund that, we can really control who has what chairs of what departments. There's a whole chapter again in the Rockefeller's biography just on the creation of different universities, like Chicago University. They created that. They also gave money to Union Seminary, and that
my
allowed
dad
them.
Went there. No,
Yeah,
Dad.
It doesn't mean everybody that goes there is like some sort of agent or so. It just means that the universities are created usually by wealthy people to pick who would go into being like the head of some important Roman Catholic seminary or some important Protestant seminary. So that's how you place your certain people in the head of the departments, and then they can decide who goes into the professional field, the academic field.
So they basically make these propaganda things, basically. So they make the and they reinterpret Aristotle and all these like thinkers to confuse everybody. They're like, yes. And then they pick their favorites and send them to the church and put them in positions of power.
You got
it. Yeah. And
that's one example I have here.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say I have one quick example. So like if people are watching and going, okay, that sounds like a good theory, you guys, but like specifically who, where, what? Columbia University is one that received a really large grant from the Luce Foundation to create something called the Center for Democracy, Toleration, and Religion. And this is an organization at Columbia University in their theological departments, their religion departments, that seeks to wedge feminism and LGBT progressive ideologies into traditional religions specifically. So their stated goal is, we don't want these old backwards traditional Christians and Jews and Muslims. We're going to create this department that pushes these modernist, specifically feminism, because you can't have the Skittles stuff. You can't have all the other progressive things until you get the feminism in there first. So they specifically created this to push feminism into the traditional sphere of the three major religions.
Wait, is that why we had all the gay priests?
Yes. Feminism opened the door for the gay Protestant pastors, the Lutherans, and the Methodists. I think the Methodists have a huge gay population, and now we have female pastors because of feminism, and it goes back to, what does the Bible say? Nobody's asking the question, what does God's word say? Why? Because God's word gives us a standard, an expectation. Right. And that doesn't fit with this social, justice warrior, new world view. Wait a minute. I have to meet a standard. You expect me to meet a standard? No, I don't like that. We're changing God.
Yeah. Standards are mean.
Yeah.
Standards oppress people.
My God didn't say that. My God doesn't have a standard. No, you're wrong. God is love. Yes. But you know what love is? Love is also discipline.
Yeah, that's where hippie Jesus comes from. This, like,
Yes.
it really kind of started in the Protestants first because we had the Great Awakening in the middle of the 1800s, and it was this big, like, outdoor revival thing where the most charismatic person who could build the biggest crowd would get these first few mega churches. And we're just coming out of the Civil War where, slavery is ending and there's a lot of civil rights activism going on, and they tied the feminism stuff right in with that and started pushing this through these, like, liberal Protestant churches first, and those really caught steam because those ideas blend really well with Americanism type of ideas of, like, liberation theology. And then, as Tim was talking about, the Roman Catholic Church held the line pretty well for the beginning of the 20th century, and then slowly they became infiltrated next.
Was that when there was some? Because I thought we were better than everyone else, the Catholics, till I found out about the priests. I'm like, dang it. And and but then my mom was saying how the church changed when she was a kid. Like they used to have like longer services and there wasn't female altar girls. And I was like, oh, when she said the female altar girls, I was like, dang it, they got us too. So is that like when it switched? Or was it before?
Yeah, in the preparatory period throughout the middle 20th century, leading up to Second Vatican Council, your mom probably told you that too, Pearl, is that 1962 to 1965 there was a revolution, and the culture of the church inverted at Vatican II. It's not a panacea because they had to prep it, and so over the course of the 20th century, leading to 1962, they changed it. And to be fair, there were some factors going against us. We were, as a church, we're flying into the headwind. Stalin and Stalinist Russia, we now know from the testimony of Bella Dodd before, like, House and senatorial un-American activities. Bella Dodd was an American communist who worked for Stalin directly. And once Fulton Sheen reconverted her to the church, she told all what she was supposed to do. She put 1,100 Skittles men into the priesthood to pollinate bad ideas and to do what Skittles men do, after Vespers or whatever, when they have their free period on Saturday nights.
What are Skittles?
And those men.
It's just our YouTube friendly way of saying, like, taste the rainbow, if you know what I mean.
My code.
I'm borrowing from Jay.
The alphabet.
I thought we're using J code here. Yeah. That's
J algorithm code.
Yeah. He has a whole lexicon, but I've taken that turn over. And Transformers, so I mean, Skittles and Transformers, that stuff was placed into the priesthood by Stalin directly. We have the testimony of Bella Dodd after she reconverted. She said a bunch of those 1,100 men she personally put into the priesthood to do the Skittles thing and to invert the doctrines to feminism. Were 4 of them were in the cardinalate, were very, very high up. And there were a bunch of Bella Dodds. That's why everybody, Michael Scott says everybody's priest is Michael Jackson. But one important concept that we shouldn't miss before we go on, based on the last thing Rachel said, is that feminism is the OG gender dysphoria. When you tell women that, act like a guy, then the next morphological step is, hey, if women can act like a guy, feminism in the middle 1800s, by the middle 1900s, really the late 50s, is when it started becoming, women can be like a guy. And not only did they go into the workplace, but this led to the Skittles movement, right? If you can act like the opposite sex, you can be the opposite sex in the bedroom. And then shortly after that, you said, hey, if you can act like them here or generally, then you can be them. If a guy throws on a dress, he's no longer a vestite, transformer vestite, but he's ontologically changed. He's now a woman. So all this comes from women not being comfortable being who they are. Women are the glory of man, like Scripture says. Man is the glory of God. Women are the glory of man. That's directly out of St. Paul.
I would say it even goes back to, you said it's like the first, I say it's the first antichrist spirit. If we really want to look at it, it's anti-God. Feminism is anti-Christ.
Yes.
It's against everything that God talks about, God's Bible, God's word. It's anti-Christ. So feminism is an anti-Christ spirit, that has infiltrated our churches, our societies, our cultures. But it was, again, you go back to Genesis and God says, don't worry, this thing's going to be here, but it's not going to have power. It's not going to have enough power to rule over, and I think that's, there's power in that hope and knowing what God says. Like, hey, they're going to want this. They're going to want to have power over you, but men will still rule over them. At the end of the day, my order is still my order, and my control and my word has more power than what their agenda is.
So why are the non okay? The Protestants are the worst. No offense. I don't know what your religions are here. But I noticed and I could not explain it. This is before I was at all red pilled. Okay. This is like Pearl was going to some church in Milwaukee for 2 years. And I just like noticed something was off. And why are the Protestant churches, the men are so feminine in them? Like they like, and I couldn't really understand why. And I couldn't explain how. But I was just like, they speak like women. They act like women, and the churches are like women. And it was so bad. There was like a date. I remember I was sitting in the church, and what they would do is there was like a dating, like where they would set people up, like from the younger people, like a dating thing, whatever. And like matchmaking, I guess it was 90% women in this matchmaking. So this was the demographics of like the younger, there's more older men, but the younger people. And so I'm just like, why? Like, one, this is like they only allowed you to date in the church. So I was like, this is like a recipe for disaster. We're all gonna die alone. And two, and two, I was like, why are the guys like so feminine in the church?
Mind you, that wasn't always the case. Now, I'm old, so I don't know everybody else's age, but I remember TBN had the power team. Okay, who remembers the power team? Those yoked out bodybuilders on stage, lifting all this weight, praising God, ripping phone books in half. It was like the WWE of Christianity on TBN, and they were very masculine men. Now, but that was like the late 80s, early 90s, but even before that, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, when they adopted the servant leader model, okay, back in 1970, I think it was, that's when we started seeing men becoming more submissive, servitude, more feminine, in my opinion.
The servant leader model, what's that?
Yes. Robert Greenleaf wrote about the servant leader, and it wasn't even biblically based. And then the church was like, hey, that sounds good. That kind of sounds like Jesus. We're going to put the Jesus fish stamp over this and approve it and take it and run with it. I mean, that's the gist of it. But I'll let the scholars go a little further because that's just my version.
Well, that's very interesting to hear that the servant leader thing was in the Protestant churches as well. I just listened to a new author called Domestic Extremist, who's a fellow Catholic and wrote some really good things. I'm also a Regnery author, so I want to be careful here. But she wrote this Domestic Extremist book, went on Klavan's show about it on Daily Wire. And he was like, look, what about wifely submission? And she's like, no. That's not what that doesn't mean that. Those 9 passages in St. Paul, they don't mean a woman has to submit, even though it says
just get rid of Ephesians. It doesn't matter. Ephesians 5 is garbage.
Well, it's not just Ephesians 5. It's Corinthians, it's Colossians, it's Titus, it's
Peter.
Timothy. I have them all. There's First Peter. There you are. You the Protestant knows them, but most Catholics don't. And here's the thing. Servant leader must have been something that was descended down from on high from the elites that were saying infiltrate Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholicism, and the Protestant churches, because all they say, I did a show on my channel taking issue with Father Mike Schmitz, who said the exact same thing. What are all these submission passages in the Bible? They'll only ever address Ephesians 5. And they all say, it just means a man's a servant. Yeah, okay, a man's a leader. But here's what I mean by leader. he takes orders from his wife. He serves her nonstop. Like, that's a follower. They buy the top line, by the bottom line of the equation. They've flipped it out for its inverse. What's the inverse of a leader? It's a follower, and it's evidently there in the playbook for all the churches.
Well, like,
oh wait,
Pastor
Father Mike
Joel
Schmidt,
Webben.
You think he's like feministy?
It's in the mainstream church now. Yeah, so like Ascension Presents, Pearl did
No.
they did a
No,
video.
Ascension Presents.
Yeah, of course. It's mainstream. Awesome. You know, so I wrote this book 2 years ago. My wife wrote this one, Ask Your Husband. And this is the one we really got come after for by even center-right Catholic outfits. Like Jackie Francois did a video for Ascension Presents 4 years ago, before we'd written our two books. And it was like, hey, Ephesians 5 doesn't mean a woman has to submit. It really means whatever the hell they say about it. However you say A is not A is the opposite of A. It was a very popular video. It's gotten tons of views. 4 years later, this is three and a half weeks ago, after everyone's in the Catholic world anyway, has at least heard about these books, if not read them. Father Mike came out and he's like, look, there's a lot of Catholic YouTubers, he's talking about myself and my wife, who are saying that submit really means submit. And Christ said, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. I guess yes is supposed to mean no in this case. But
it's not consent.
It's not post enlightenment consent. But he did this video, and the comments were quite a white pill. The comments were like, no, you need to read these books, or you need to look at these passages in scripture, more importantly than anyone's books. And it shows that you can actually shift the Overton window back to the right. It never happens, but with a little bit of luck and a little bit of providence, you can shift it back. But yeah, Father Mike and Ascension Presents, they might be center right on abortion, or they might be even far right on abortion, but the feminism issue is the main one. People have to get their heads around this. It is the main political issue. It's the main cultural issue. It's the true red pill. Christianity is 100% not egalitarian. Men and women have different ranks.
Absolutely.
And people in the church, in the Catholic Church, are hiding. I also want to stick up for the Protestant. Calvinist Protestants are really based. There's a base Calvinist called Doug Wilson. His daughter wrote an amazing book on it. That's the most similar book to Steph's, my wife's, which is Ask Your
Husband.
Even
go further than that. It'd be go back to Del Rock. Del Rock had a blog on Red Pill and Christianity, and actually him and Doug Wilson used to trade paint. They used to debate. Now Doug Wilson is as recently has this epiphany and change in his belief system, or in his understanding, interpretation of the Bible, because as of 4 years ago, him and Del Rock were going back and forth over biblical patriarchy and a male-led role. I believe Del Rock or Doug Wilson said, like, if your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, it's like that's God's, telling you you're not doing good enough as a husband. So like this is so I'm not saying, I'm glad that he changed and he got more enlightened, but it's still relatively new. I would go back to Del Rock's writing on his blog, which is still up. He hasn't been writing since 2020, I think. But that goes back further. But it's funny because you mentioned Peter, you mentioned Titus, you mentioned Timothy. Everybody wants to skip over the Bible and pick and choose what it is, instead of taking God's word for its entirety. And let me just say this, the consequence for those pastors, priests, ministers, whoever, is great. That right there is being a false prophet. That's being a false teacher. Like the Bible's very clear about what's going to happen to those who taint God's word to change the doctrine.
Jay can answer that question about why Protestants first, though. Maybe we didn't really get, like, Jay knows a lot about why did Protestantism get hit first, do you think, Jay?
Well, I think since they're not in any way centralized, the Roman Catholic Church is the most centralized. The Orthodox Church is less centralized, but still has a hierarchy and still has sort of centers of power and institutional influence. through certain schools and patriarchates. And then Protestantism is really decentralized. So it's a lot easier to buy off and create, just on the fly kind of, strip mall churches, strip mall seminaries or whatever. So that was easier. There's also an element that's pretty obvious. I think a lot of people are overlooking, which is that one reason that ministers don't want to offend the congregation is that a lot of the tithes come from the women. So if you start going against feminism and the dads aren't present, you got a cucked congregation, a congregation, right? They're not going to be giving the tithes. So it's going to cost the church quite a bit. So they're going to preach the things that are safe and easy, lowest common denominator. Those are factors. And then again, you had, I think by the 1930s, most of the Protestant major mainline denominations were pretty much conquered and liberalized across the board. That's where we get these little Protestant splits like the OPC and the PCA from the PCUSA. So the Presbyterians kind of splintered. The other groups have the same splintering when you get this, but it just becomes so institutionalized, or what we call institutional capture. Once you have the institution, whether it's the denomination of Methodists or the Episcopalians, once they're captured, there's really no place for any male authority or leadership there, because you're going to be ostracized. They don't want you there. And that's when they just roll out the Skittles flags on all the churches. So that's a process of institutional capture.
Okay, so question. Are the people pushing this conscious or brainwashed? Because I'm gonna give you guys an example. So I used to think that women should vote. You know what I mean? I was like, women, we should vote. And then last year, it was like a year ago, I was like, should women vote? And I was kind of kidding. And then I was like, oh my God, we shouldn't vote. Now, I mean, maybe, I don't know what you guys' opinions on that is. But I didn't realize that like women voting is part of feminism in a way. Like I thought that was like a good thing. Women just had to fight and like win and whatever. Yay, we got to vote and we fought so hard for this. Didn't realize we don't really deserve to vote. But that's a whole different lane. But so my question is, like, I just kind of was repeating programming that I'd heard in school. Right? Like they taught us in school that women had to fight to vote. We finally got the right to vote, and yay. In the churches, is this conscious, or has it just been repeated for so long that we believe it?
I think it's been like nobody challenges it anymore. See, like the Sunday service is this. You don't even need to bring your Bible anymore. They got it on the overhead. All right. They'll even highlight the scripture for you. You don't got to do any work. They make it zero work for you to do. And then you have the pastor. And I'm gonna, I don't know if you guys are a fan of Matt Chandler's, but I'm gonna ride on him on this whole Jesus wants the rose thing. He has this clip out there where he's talking about promiscuity, and he was at this youth group thing, and he brought this woman who's a single mom who's having an affair with a marrying man, and the pastor brings this rose out and shares it with the audience, and tells everybody to smell the rose, see how beautiful the rose is. And when the rose gets back to him, the rose is broken, it's wilted, it's all. And then he asks, who would want this? Talking about promiscuity, right? And then he said, all angry, like, Jesus wants the rose. You're right. Jesus wants the rose, but no man's going to marry that rose. So why don't you talk about the fact that promiscuity is still bad? So it's a doctrine that, if I want to say this, it's been taught. Nobody's doing any challenges, because these are men of God, right? They studied like I studied. These guys must know, right? Everybody's lazy. Nobody wants to do their work themselves. I kid you not. I was in a service one day, and this pastor told me he believes that in order to be married, you have to go through the state. And I said, tell me what scripture that is. Thou shalt get married with the state. You show me where that is in the Bible, and I will, take back my statement. He couldn't. He kept on arguing. Then the head pastor came out, and I asked him the same thing. He goes, it's not. I was like, exactly. You don't even know what you're preaching about, whether it's doctrinable or not. But just because you heard it and you don't want to do your own research, you're just going to run with the story that sounds the best.
Yeah. And now we're in a position where, because feminism is the default setting, you guys, like Pearl was just saying, like she thought a certain way prior to, doing some research and getting into this world and learning a bunch of stuff. She just thought a certain way because it was the default of what everyone around her said, what everyone around her thought, what she heard in school, what she saw in the media. It's the default setting. So now, in order for a pastor, a priest, anybody, any man to preach against this, to say this should not be the default setting, this was a mistake, you're swimming against the entire current of the whole culture. You're going to get, trashed in the media. You're going to get attacked by women. You're going to get attacked by cucked men.
They're so nice to us, Rachel.
Oh yeah. They're such sweetie pies. If you say, "Hey, wait a minute, I think there's something to this patriarchal order that God designed. I think it's better." Everybody loses their minds because then it becomes, you hate women, you must be an abuser, so especially for a man to push back on this is really tough now because they get accused of all sorts of things. So it just makes it really hard.
I know when I wake up, first thing I think is, how can I abuse some ladies today? Right? Let's do some abuse. One thing I wanted to add too, that at the ground level, it's not really intentional. It's just repeating the, brainwashing, the loop, the feedback loop, basically repeating what they were told. But there are institutes that study how to weaponize this. And so, for example, Tavistock is one of these key institutions, which everybody knows is public in the last 5 years, has been cheering on the main brains behind. Yeah, the Tavistock Institute. They're the main brains behind the push for the idea that we can all morph into whatever we want to morph into, change into things, right? That's all from Tavistock. That same institute has been there for 100 years, weaponizing and engineering strategies to alter and even collapse society.
Wow. Yeah, remember, Pearl, you tweeted about this and you mentioned it in a recent video that trauma used to be something we referred to as like you came home from the war after seeing god-awful things and you had trauma. Tavistock is the institute that took trauma and shell shock from war and figured out how to kind of weaponize it and use propaganda to convince everyone that any experience you've had is trauma, that kind of thing. So that's where that comes from.
And we're women. We just believe anything. You know what I mean? We're like, you tell us damn near anything. We're like, yes.
Women are very easily propagandized. Yes.
What I realized too is like they weaponize words. So they'll like switch the definition. I realize it's like a system where
that's a Tavistock thing.
Word and they'll be like, we need to just change the definition of this word and confuse everybody. And so like I noticed this with sexual assault. I'm like, what's a sexual assault? What is it? I don't even know. Like, is it a guy grabbing a girl's butt at the bar? Is it rape? Is it like, what is it? And I was thinking, I'm like, I hear this word all the time, SA, but nobody really knows what it means. And I was like, they add in all these big words that nobody knows what they mean. I don't like people that use big words. Okay. I think we should return to small words because I'm tired of being confused in life. So
they it's funny. I got a clip for you. And this is from Pastor Joel Webbin. So Tim, you probably know who he is. He's actually close with Doug Wilson. Jay, you heard of Joel Webbin? No, okay. I'm going to share this, and he talks about the feminization of the church, and it's actually really good. Here we go.
You have to share your screen. Oh, there.
Ways that I think are borderline blasphemous. Jesus is my boyfriend worship music. They talk about daddy God and my lover Jesus in ways that are really blasphemous. They're gross. It is not biblical. It's weird. It's really weird. And the reason that this goes on is because the church is effeminate. Because men don't go to church. And chicken or the egg. Don't want to just beat up the men. Men don't go to church because church isn't for men. Every church has almost explicitly said at this point, hey, if you're a man, we're not here for you. We exist for women and children.
Yep.
And if you are going to come to church, we're going to treat you like Homer Simpson. We're going to treat you like you're dumb, you're stupid. Right? We can't preach for an hour. And we can't use theological terms. God forbid a man has to use Google on the way out the door. So you didn't define that term, Pastor. Great, look it up.
Do your work.
Nobody talks, seriously, no 21-year-old goes to their professor in university after class and says, I don't appreciate you using a difficult language.
Pearl.
The professor would say, well, buckle up, buttercup. Get your big boy pants on. Let's be an adult. But we have made church for the weak. For women, for children, there's activities, there's coloring,
Crafts.
there's snacks, there's food.
Crafts.
It's a 25-minute long sermon.
Puppet ministry.
No theological terms being used. And men would rather go hunting. Shocker. Because they're men. That's why. Men have failed in multiple arenas. But it's not just men. I mean, here's another thing that you see in church is just to show the effeminacy, the feminization of the church. Every Mother's Day, you hear a sermon that says, thank God for moms. And I would say yes and amen. Every Father's Day, you hear a sermon that says, do better dads.
Yeah, so true.
And celebrate single moms.
I think that there's a problem with that. If any sin ever is preached about in the church, it is always some kind of masculine sin. But that's not the way the Bible reads. Right? It's not always that a man is a predator, that a man is an abuser. In the Proverbs, we see that there is a wayward woman, that her feet never stay at home. She's a feminist. She's an entrepreneur.
OnlyFans.
She's a young professional.
Her
feet are never at home. And she's going out into the street, to and fro, looking for men to devour. Anytime we see sexual immorality in the church, what do we immediately assume? The man devoured the woman. That's entirely possible. We have Bible verses that talk about that too.
Pause it.
But we have like about a third.
I am so tired of hearing about how the women were so broken when they had sex. I'm so tired of this. It's just like, what do you mean you were broken, Diane? You slept with like 4 guys on the football team. You were horny. Like, get out of here. Like,
wait till he finishes. Like, he talks about
oh my God. Sorry, I just needed to add that. I'm so tired of these women. They would come in, they would give us chastity speakers. And all it was, and I was thinking about this, I was like, all this is a reward for being a hoe. Because she gets her husband at the end. She's like, oh, it's always the Ranther chick. It's the Jason and Christiniana Everett is like the Catholic's favorite. No offense, they seem like nice people. But she only got away with being a hoe because she was hot. Okay? I'm sorry. I gotta say it. it. And they'll just do, and I was like, wait, so she got to be a hoe. She went and bit like was a big hoe. Then they reward her with the husband. And then now she gets to make a career off of being a hoe? I'm like, what? I remember.
Well, yeah, we're almost intentionally telling young women, have your hot girl summer, have your hoe phase. It's fine. You can just repent later, and then you'll be a born again virgin, and it's fine.
Well, because they tell guys like, hey, you need to forgive them of their sins. No, God forgave you of your sins. I don't got to forgive you and take you as a wife because you decided to be a hoe. You know, like
I said this on Timcast, and this guy, like, this guy that was on too, he's like a Catholic. He was like, oh, I don't think you should phrase it like that. I'm like, well, that's what happened. Why can't I describe what happened?
Because it's mean to women, Pearl, and you're super. No, it's this paradox of we're going to infantilize women and act like, you can never be mean to them. You can never criticize them in the slightest, but also they're strong and independent and they don't need men. And all. It's just, this feminism is a paradox. It is a contradiction, a complete and total contradiction, and it's doublethink. But this is one of the reasons why it's so appealing to elites and other people who are anti-Christ, like you guys were saying. This feminism is, at the end of the day, a rebellion against God the Father himself. The idea of God the Father. It's a rebellion against that. And so anytime they can invert or confuse or use doublespeak or contradictory ideas like this is why feminists go crazy. If you're wondering why they get crazier and more insane as they get older, it's because you can't just live with this total cognitive dissonance and total contradiction in your head and try to build a life on that. You'll go crazy. But that's why they like
finish this real quick. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, can I just, before you go on, can I say something on what he said on Mother's and Father's Day?
Yeah.
Which is, I wanted to tweet this on Father's Day, and I'm pretty bold on Twitter, but probably, Pearl, you're the only one out of us that could get away with it. Mother's Day, and I had a nice, good mom, but Mother's Day was, I've talked to lots of dudes about this behind the scenes, always one of the worst days of the year. The expectation control that is run like a psyop for Mother's Day, it's become like the Christmas shopping season. Father's Day is nothing. Shame on you, men. But Mother's Day is one of the worst days of the year. You create these expectations in even goodly women who run around like a tyrant, like, oh, you only got me a card and a flower. I'm like, I'm sorry, the holiday was made up 50 years ago or 40 years ago. It's really, really bad. And that's
it's
because
almost idolatry.
The number one cardinal rule of feminism that goes like a thin blue line through all of the things we're talking about here today is never, ever, ever are you allowed for any reason at any time to say something negative about a woman. And you can always and should always say negative things about men. That will run through every phase of, if we talk about the red pill stuff, masculinism stuff, women, what you're talking about with hoes, that's it. And it cross-fertilizes what he said about
and I can't even say that 35-year-old women are uglier than 25-year-old women.
Yeah, because it's cardinal rule.
Yeah, because it's you're saying that there's a standard. It goes back to women not wanting to meet a standard
for weeks. I mean,
here we go. I'm gonna
finish
this. Like, there's like a
but by Christian women in delusion. I'm like, what the fuck?
There's a really good part he's about to say here. I wanted to highlight this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Third of the book of Proverbs, talking about a woman. It says her room. She goes out. She seeks men. She's not being sought by them. She goes and gets them, leads them like a lamb to the slaughter. And it says in her house, there are dead men's bones. She's a man-eater. She's a man-eater. Right? That's a biblical song. There are women like that devour men. But pastors don't preach about that. Why? Because, well, biblically, pastors should be men. And we feel like only a woman can challenge other women. No, the word of God is what speaks to us. We don't speak from our experience. The authority of preaching, brothers and sisters, is not the experience of the man. The authority of preaching is the truth of the word. The reason why I can confidently say to men, women, or children, thus saith the Lord, is because God wrote a book.
So, I mean, there you go. Like, we don't have pastors like that, like him, enough of them going out there and saying exactly what's in the Bible. No, and that's the problem. And I think Jay mentioned it earlier. It's about the money. Let's just face it. It's about the money. Why? Because more women pay the tithes. Men ain't going to church. Okay, as you heard, they'd rather go hunting. They'd rather, work on their car. They'd rather watch NASCAR. They watch football on Sunday. They'd rather pay their money to do that than go to a church, hear a pastor, criticize them for just being a man.
Well, at the level of the middle managers, at the level of the middle managers, and by that I mean bishops and whatever, like pastors in the Protestant church, but bishops for Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, yes, they care about the money, but above them, it's about much, 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 much more than money. It's about social control. The fundamental scheme of I'm just going to say it, the elitists who are Luciferians is about destroying what's called the single cell of society, the family. And how do you do that? You turn men and women against each other, which is why Skittles and Transformers, which are just later iterations, later versions of the original gender dysphoria, feminism. Feminism affects 99 out of 100 households, okay? Whether or not they're divorced and it actually broke the marriage, it fundamentally perverts everyone to think their mom's a boss. And what they want to do at the very highest echelons of society is not, they don't care about the money. These people have money beyond money, the people that Jay and Rachel are talking about in their books. The middle managers, the little petty, the bishop of Tuscaloosa, wherever, bumfuck, whatever, they care about the money, so they'll go along with it.
Right.
They'll literally bracket Ephesians 5 verses 21, 22, 23 in the Roman Catholic Missal. And again, Father Mike Schmitz was defending bracketing Ephesians 5, by the way, in the Missal when you read along in a Catholic church after Vatican II. But
can I ask you guys a question on that?
Echelon, it's about more than money. Yeah.
So I look at Ephesians 5 and I see 3 commandments. Okay. Husbands, love your wives. That's a commandment. Wives, submit to your husbands and everything. That's a commandment. Wives, respect your husbands. That's a commandment. Nowhere in there does it say, hey, husbands, love your wives when she gives you good head. Okay. Husbands, love your wives when she cleans the house. Husbands, love your wives when she's not giving you an attitude. It doesn't say that. Just as it doesn't say, hey, wives, submit to your husbands when you feel like it, when you feel like he's being a good boy, when he's being a good servant leader, then you submit to him. Respect him only as a good servant leader. No, it doesn't say that. And it's like when you are preaching, or when they're preaching this tainted, disordered version of the gospel, that's why we have divorce. That's why we have the problems in relationships that we do, because they have perverted God's word to fit a feminist narrative to appease the people that are paying for these jets and these, YouTube channels, and they're paying for the lavish lifestyle that they get to make by disordering the Bible.
Amen.
Would you guys agree to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about the whole idea of, first thing, that if we wanted to cleanse the church, you get rid of praise and worship, because all that stuff is gay, right? Jesus, Jesus,
Daddy God.
Yeah, that
Daddy God,
right. But so all of society,
never get my
right?
husband to go to church, that kind of church. I could never get him to go. He could not tolerate a whole church filled with women doing this with their hands, and they want the emotional experience.
It's emotive, right? So this is an emotion-based religion, and that goes along with a society that is geared towards fairness, right? When I was saying egalitarian, equalitarian, that's just an idea that, all of society should be reorganized to be fair and equal. But what's ironic about that is that there's even studies now that show that the constantly appealing to being a victim and to principles of equality and then social, virtue signaling, right? That's actually a technique to gain status in society and to extract resources and attention. So it's now what used to be supposedly about equality and rights is now a tool to destroy people, right? Cancel culture is a way to go after people and destroy them as a sneaky little sus technique, right? In the same way, the society is now reorganized to be supposedly about fairness and equality and how we feel, right? Not what's true or what's false, but do your words make people feel bad, right? That's all a feminine-based society. It doesn't mean that women are evil, but it just means that you can't organize principles you can't organize society on the basis of the feminine traits. It has to be organized on the basis of, masculine. Jordan Peterson always talks about the patriarchy, masculine logos principles, right? There's a reason for that, because that's how you can order society and you actually have a running, functioning society. You can't have society function on the basis of who makes me feel bad, because then it turns into a tool, a technique for destroying people and lying, basically.
I knew it. Okay. I could never articulate it. So people are like, but no, because even with the 25 versus 35-year-old tweet I had, everyone was like, well, why do you say it like that? I'm like, well, because it's true. And then I get run up the flagpole. I mean, I don't care. I think it's funny. All these married women tweeting me their selfies. They're happily married. You know
I'm sexy at 52, Pearl. How dare you?
What kind of happy? I don't know who these ladies are, to be honest. Don't know their backstory. But I'm like, these happy wives and mothers are competing for my approval of their hotness? This is kind of weird. You know what I mean?
But what Jay said is really important super important to connect to something you said earlier, Pearl. You don't trust dudes that use big words, because big words can be weaponized. The far greater danger comes from the new emotive response that's centrally planned, centrally controlled, and then descended to the hoi polloi, the population, on common words. So common words, particularly little words in the Bible, far more dangerous. What they do when you say, like, look, submission is submission, right? Like I said, domestic extremists just went on Klavan's show, two conservatives, and they're both running down submission. Father Mike Schmitz, a center-right conservative in the church, running down submission. Submission's a word everyone knows what it means. We know what it means so much that they programmed this response that what they have, even the conservatives say, is that if you align yourself with, if you're a Christian, whether you're Protestant, Orthodox, or Catholic, you have to take this seriously, and it means what it says it means. But they are always talking about cheating and beating. Even the ones that will defend it in the Catholic Church are like, no, I don't mean a man can cheat or beat. It's like, why the fuck would you say that it means cheating and beating? Well, like, that's like saying, I'm eating a delicious meal right now, not poison. That doesn't make sense. Right. Like, cheating and beating has nothing to do with leading. Like, if you're a leader and your wife has to submit to you, you shouldn't have to stipulate that you're doing the opposite of a good job.
Well, there was actually a big propaganda campaign around the turn of the 20th century because women's suffrage was deeply unpopular with the general public, deeply unpopular. They couldn't get women interested in it. They couldn't get women to back it. Most men didn't support it. It was this tiny fringe element. So they launched a huge propaganda campaign that was also part of the temperance movement. It was this propaganda campaign that all men are alcoholics. They spend all day drinking, and then they come home and beat their wives. And this is why we need women's liberation. And you say, liberation from what? And they go, from horrible men, because men are abusers. Men have too much power, which leads them to just automatically abuse. And then we think to ourselves that somehow if women have power, they won't abuse because they're gentle and sweet or something. Not borne out by the actual stats at all. Will Noland is really good on these stats. I have a ton of these stats. When you look at women in power, they actually tend to be more abusive than men in many cases. Like, for instance, in the juvenile justice system, 9 out of 10 children who are assaulted as inmates in a juvenile facility are actually assaulted by women who are authority figures in these places. So this was part of a huge propaganda campaign to convince everyone that men were the danger, men were the social problem. They're all alcoholics. They're all just beating the crap out of everyone, just abusing everybody. It was grossly overblown. Are there some men sometimes who do this? Yes. But women are more guilty of domestic violence and assault to higher degrees. Yep. And they do tend to be a lot more apt to abuse power when they get it. So this idea that everyone has, that all men are just waiting, they're just waiting for their chance. Like Jay said, they wake up in the morning, how can I abuse some ladies today? That was a big part of the propaganda to push feminism in. And it's so ingrained in people's minds, it's very hard to get them out of thinking it.
Well, and I'm like, have you seen us during a breakup? We're so irrational. The fact
you light a man's house on fire, smashing a man's car with. There's a popular country song by there's a popular country song by Carrie Underwood about catching her boyfriend cheating and destroying the guy's car.
It's a hit. I got my front door busted in. It's a bop.
It's a bop.
Oh yeah. You know, it's funny because
totally fine. Imagine if a man came out with a song saying, "Hey, I caught my girlfriend cheating, so I destroyed her house or her car." That would never even be released. Never. But when a girl does it, like, girl.
I'm waiting for the Islam rapper. I'm waiting for the Islam rapper to come out and be like, "I caught my girl cheating, then I stoned that hoe. I caught my girl."
Yeah.
I mean, it will be a bop, right?
Dude, everyone jumped on my case, Pearl, for a tweet the other day. I took that line from 1993 Sandlot, you play ball with like a girl, the most famous line in the movie. And that was right at the beginning of third wave feminism. Played great, right? It was everyone's favorite line, but it was fourth wave feminism. And the UN, by the way, Agenda 2030, huge push to get more women in pro sports. So even after third wave feminism, that was still a popular line. I said in my tweet, This sucks because even most conservatives now would be like, why is that funny? Maybe girls are great at sports, which is obviously bullshit. And everyone jumped on my case. So what I did, a la Pearly Things, I went and I found a reunion of the Sandlot guys from a couple years back, 20 years after, 30 years after. And they were set, it was specifically, hey, would this line be in the movie now? And they were all like, no, like some female MMA fighter would kick our ass, blah, blah, blah. No. And the director said, yeah, we would put that line in the movie if we wanted it to flop. That proves a few things at once, proved my point, which is really what I give a fuck about. But it also proved that even second and third wave feminism hadn't yet made that line off limits. Conservatives will whine and moan about how you can't say the kindergarten cop line anymore. Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. They're like,
oh,
I thought it's not a tumor.
I know that kid actor. So Pearl, you know him too, actually. That is Thor's little brother. RP Thor's little brother is Miko Hughes, who's the little boy that says, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. Like, no, he's still the same size too, same height as he was in that movie. But you know, it's funny. You brought up cucking, right? And I told my wife that I wasn't going to bring this up unless somebody brought it up, and she's looking at me. But cucking goes back to the effeminate man, which in Leviticus is a sin. All right. It's like what I think that describes, like, if two men are fighting and her husband's getting beat up and she reaches down and grabs the dude's balls and like breaks his nuts or whatever, that's making him an effeminate man. And that woman should get her hand chopped off for doing such a thing. That's in Leviticus. Think about how the church is cucking men today with this feminine, narrative. They are literally destroying men within, using God's word to try to destroy men. And it's like, why aren't these pastors doing anything about it? And that comes back to the question, why isn't there enough Rachels, Tims, Jays, and Glenn out there saying anything? Why isn't Ruslan saying anything about this?
Well, okay, do you know what I'm sick of? I'm sick of being gaslit. Okay, because all right. I know that's a feminist term. I just think it's funny. But by the conservative Christians, because what'll happen is I don't know how to like explain it. And I've noticed it from like 16 when they brought in all these like chastity speakers. That was the first time where I couldn't figure out, like, something doesn't add up, like something's off, but I could never describe what it was. Do you know what I mean? And then I tried a Christian church for a couple of years. I'm like, damn it, this is worse. And so, but when you say like there's feminine men in the church and you start to talk about issues within the church, they'll say, well, your faith is weak then. Or they'll say, oh, you're not like the right kind of Christian or the right kind of Catholic, or you don't have like the right worldview. When you're like, okay, something's off here. I don't know what it is, or I don't know how to describe it. But then they'll just like be like, oh, well, she only goes to church once a month. It's just like, I was honest about that. You know what I mean? It's like they'll like weaponize your faith against you if you have any criticisms of the church.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but this is kind of part and parcel too of this funding that we're talking about. So here's another big example. If you guys want to know the scope of the problem of how this infiltration happened, there's a foundation called the Arcus Foundation. It belongs to the guy who started the Stryker Corporation in the hospitals. You know how the hospital beds all have Stryker on them? This is a company that makes these hospital beds. And the founder is himself a Skittles person, very feminist guy, believes in feminism. And he started the Arcus Foundation. And in 2017, they started something called the Global Religions Program. And this was to promote feminism and LGBT stuff in the Abrahamic religions. And they donated $120,000 in 2015 alone to target the traditional Christian churches. That's the Roman Catholics, the Orthodox, and the Protestants. Anybody who was still holding the line against feminism and then, of course, Skittles stuff. 120,000 in 1 year just from this one foundation. There are dozens of foundations that do this, we have millions, tens of millions of dollars being poured into trying to get priests and pastors into the churches who will promote this stuff, trying to get them into the bishopric, trying to get them into the World Council of Churches, which is another organization that influences churches for the feminist agenda. So there's huge money behind this. There was also $15 million from Arcus in 2015, which was an unprecedented number to push transformer stuff into churches and to promote this, and it's partially to get scholars, these university scholars, to reinterpret the Bible, reinterpret Roman Catholic doctrine, reinterpret Orthodox teaching, and twist it to fit this narrative, right? So that these groups that want to push feminism or push, Skittle stuff, they can say, well, actually, like the gentlemen were saying, Ephesians 5 actually means mutual submission. It means that both husband and wife submit to each other at the same time. So this is where all this twisting kind of comes from. It's a little bit more of a top-down thing where they put millions of dollars in and get certain people to teach this in seminary and university and at conferences and things like that. So we're talking about tens of millions of dollars just from one foundation in 1 year. I mean, it's a mind-blowing amount of money.
The chastity speakers push mutual submission hard, especially in the Catholic Church.
And it's really what it is. They're taking it. You're supposed to submit to the roles that God gave you. That's what that submission is. Husbands, submit to your role, be the man. Wives, submit to your role, be the woman. Don't disrespect each other and try to do each other's job, because God gave you this order for that's what that means. Not, equally submit to one another. No. Submit
That's an oxymoron. It's silly to like imagine if you had two kings of a country and that both kings are trying to mutually submit to each other. That doesn't work.
No, you, Your Highness. No, you, Your Highness.
You're right.
Also, like Paul says, every wife at least once a week, I do prefer on Wednesdays, needs a good spanking. So just give her a good spanking on a Wednesday morning. Everything will run smooth. It's in Paul's epistle. I'm just joking. I did want to point out, too, that what Rachel was saying about the entities that fund these things. So Tavistock, by the way, played a key role in the study, or what you were talking about, Tim, with pushing women into sports. What happens is a lot of times the UN or one of these entities, they'll say, hey, Tavistock, you're a research think tank. Give us information and research that will help us to implement this. So Tavistock will go and do a bunch of research, kind of like the RAND Corporation does, right? And then they'll say, here's your best strategy to get more women into sports, pushing it in the elementary school, pushing new programs, for college, sports for women, all this stuff. And that's all intended for a long-term goal of basically collapsing society, putting it into a future technocracy.
Well, and sports, it was actually... This was a hard red pill for me to swallow, because I literally loved, I love volleyball. I love basketball. It's so fun. But it's true that it kind of makes you into a boy, because it's like every day after school, I would train for 4 hours. When are you going to have time to be home when you're training 4 hours a day? And then
it's basic teleology. It's really, really basic. Testosterone makes a human being more male-like. And the test is in the goal of the body. When women get lots of testosterone, bro, you probably know this. There's something called the female athlete triad. Some studies show it's up to 40% of even JV level high school girl athletes wind up with the female athlete triad. They become infertile when they get the triad from too much testosterone. When a male gets more testosterone, does he become infertile? No, he becomes super fertile. This is because, again, and this is what I want to say to the red pill guys. God speaks to us through our bodies. A male should be super testosterone filled. In your 40s, this is how you stay healthy. Even protection from cancer is men getting testosterone. When women get it, it makes them unable to procreate. Really good female athletes stop being fertile. It's the perfect proof.
No, and
testosterone helps men with depression. Right, it gives them their drive. Like this push against testosterone. I'm on testosterone. I have no problem. I take a bunch of gear, and me and Zerka just talked about our cycles the other day. It's like I have no problem admitting that, because it gives me what I need to get through my day. It gives me that drive, that hunger. I don't get aggressive. It doesn't make me more, oh, I hate the world. No, it's just like it gives you that I'm not depressed. I don't have to deal with depression. When guys have low testosterone, you're more susceptible to depression, anxiety, your antisocial disorders. There's a lot of things that when you're hormonally imbalanced, it affects men. It makes men more feminine. If we notice that, our testosterone levels have dropped dramatically over time, for men these days. And we wonder why men are the way they are.
They pushed gaming really hard at boys to get them sedentary and living out their, because you can have this fake sense of accomplishment by leveling up in a game and things like that, which really preys on men's like natural desire to climb the hierarchy. And then we push girls into women's sports. And at Pearl's an athlete. I've been a bodybuilder, powerlifter for 16 years, so I know a bit about it as well. And we push women into sports. And it kind of not only emasculates them, but it teaches them to be highly competitive. And I'm not even saying sports or athletic endeavors for women are bad, but pushing them to that level, like where Pearl was at, where it's her whole life, where she's, practicing 4, 5, 6 hours a day. She's doing tournaments, she's traveling. She told me a little bit like once we talked about this on stream, and she was like, yeah, when I was done with this, I was kind of like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Because I've spent all these years invested in this, right? So it's just kind of funny how they pushed sports on girls super hard, but then boys, football is dangerous now. You can't play football because you'll get a concussion, and boys sports are too aggressive. You should just sit inside and eat chicken tendies and play video games.
Well, isn't it funny how the APA, when they listed what is toxic masculinity, or all these toxic traits, but then when they tell you what a powerful woman is, or all the toxic traits that they said men can't be doing, like, oh, be promiscuous, be competitive, be adventurous. Oh, if you're a guy and you do those things, you're toxic. As long as you have a vagina, you're not toxic if you do those things. Well, it's crazy.
And even in like women's sports, like I wonder if the high testosterone makes like women gay, because on the basketball team, there was some lesbians. Let me tell you, volleyball for whatever reason doesn't really have. You might have some bi chicks, but not lesbians like that. But basketball, yeah, there was 2 girls on the team. They broke up. There was some drama. You know what I mean? Like, and the other thing is, it totally, like, I had this red pill moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I've had feminists training me the last like 10 years or 15 years, because it's like a pipeline of just like being single forever if you take volleyball to the extreme, because it's like you go to college and then after college you go overseas to play, and it's usually by older women that are training you, and they're usually older, they're usually childless. And I think they have good intentions, like there's a lot of people that are super passionate about it, but I was like, still the outcome is a lot, like if you really take it to the extreme level, a lot of these women are like dying alone, like they're not getting married and having families.
Remember the Christian girl or two that was straight that passed through the WNBA? Yeah, I can't remember her name either. There was 1 or 2, but she said it was 98% of the league was lesbian, and they bullied her for being a straight Christian. By the way, the WNBA has now been in business for 27 years, and they haven't made a positive penny once. They are they are a leech on the NBA.
They are a write-off for the NBA. They are a write-off for the. It's a way the NBA gets away with taxes. Let's just face it.
Well,
I like to.
And even like they'll push it too. Like I remember my coaches was basically like telling, I literally remember them. There was a girl that was like super Christian on the team, and she didn't drink, and they were saying like she needs to go out with the team and drink, because like otherwise like you're not participating in like team bonding, basically. Like they want the team to be your family instead of like an actual family. But sorry, go ahead, Jay.
No, yeah, I mean, another institution that's really important in this, and we can talk about like NGOs and stuff, but the 60s counterculture revolution was really key for all of what we're talking about today, because even though that was supposedly the oppression of the man and this kind of stuff, right? I mean, even the idea like, oh, we're fighting the man, the oppression of the man, right? That's the patriarchy, right? And a big pusher of that was actually the CIA. People think of the CIA as like, oh, it's this Cold War, like conservative, James Bond is fighting together with the CIA against the communists. But the reality is that the CIA was not a conservative institution. It's actually a very liberal institution. In the 1960s, they were directly tied into radical feminism. Gloria Steinem, for example, worked for a CIA front. She was open about this. She's like, yeah, I work for the CIA. It's a front. We push liberal values in the sense of, quote, liberalism, like not liberal economics, but like total liberal culture values against supposedly the Soviets, because they were trying to portray Stalinism and Khrushchev as this authoritarian institution. And so then they fund like crazy liberal artists, Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol. So the destruction of the arts with like crazy abstract ugly art and toilets with like Jesus in a toilet, piss Christ, all that kind of stuff comes out of the CIA's control of culture. And they also were pushing the feminist stuff at the same time through Gloria Steinem and Playboy magazine. CIA gave money to Hugh Hefner, for example.
Yeah, they also started Ms. Magazine. Clay Felker is the one who gave Gloria Steinem the money and started Ms. Magazine. That was a CIA publication. And they also, Jay talks a lot about the Congress for Cultural Freedom. There's a book by Frances Stoner Saunders. Jay just shared on Twitter a long little clip of her talking about this. It's so fantastic, about how the CIA really took feminism and pushed it to the forefront. It was not popular. Everybody believes that feminism was a natural, organic groundswell of women who just couldn't stand their oppression any longer and hated their lives, and they were so miserable, and so they had to have feminism. They had to fight for it. Totally untrue. It was pushed by the CIA into the culture. That's why in the 70s you see all these movies and all these musicians and albums and stuff pushing feminist ideas like the Stepford Wives and Divorce American Style, where there was a whole slew of movies that came out, a whole bunch of artists, rock singers, pop singers who came out pushing feminist stuff. And the CIA was behind that. And they chose, just like they choose professors and put them in universities, they did the same thing where they picked certain actors, directors, bands, people in the pop culture and pushed them to the forefront to push this feminist message into the culture. And that's how it became so dominant.
There's a great famous dialogue between Betty Friedan, famous at this point, she was a young feminist, and Simone de Beauvoir, who was a very old French feminist. And de Beauvoir told Friedan, she was like, yo, you Americans have funny ideas about how to get women out of the home. You guys are obsessed with liberty. This has to be a top-down thing. In France, we do it with legislation because women are so naturally inclined, because they're built for being in the home. We in France believe you'll never get them out of the home just by shaming them the way you American feminists want to do. You have to force them out with psyops and with legislation that makes it illegal, basically impossible for them to stay there.
I end my book with that quote from her. She said, if you give women the choice to stay home and raise their children and be homemakers, they will always choose that. That's precisely why there cannot be such a choice. And I believe her. Like, I end my book by saying I believe her. So if we just give women the choice, if we explain that this is all completely inorganic, pushed on you, you've been programmed, you've been brainwashed, it's perfectly okay for you to want to be a wife, to be a mother, to be submissive and a helpmeet to your husband. Those things are good things. Those are valid choices. It's cool. You should do it. If we push that message, more and more women will just breathe a sigh of relief and go, oh, thank goodness. Because being a boss bitch and trying to run your hoe game, and like push your OnlyFans, that stuff is destroying women. It's harmful to them. They don't actually love it. It's just that all of society is screaming at us that this is what we have to do to be successful as women. Simply give them the choice, and most of them are not going to choose OnlyFans. They're going to want to have babies. They're going to want to get married and bake and share recipes and, make homes. That's how women are. So yeah.
But see, I don't even blame women for all this. I blame men. It goes back to men. And I'll say that in this sense, like, men are to lead. When we defer leadership to women to appease them, right, then you get what we have here. That's why you got all these guys that are supporting these girls' OnlyFans, because they're not masculine enough. They're afraid to tell these women, hey, you're not living right. I don't want you. You're not valuable to me when you're ran through. Adam 22's wife is not a valuable woman. Okay. Like, her life is valuable, right? Everybody's alive that has value in God's eyes, but she is not a quality woman to marry, right? But Adam 22, no, I'm going to get a whole bunch of vagina, because if I say, hey, yeah, I share my wife because I'm that kind of man. I'm masculine enough to share my wife. You are only preaching the narrative to benefit you. And you're spilling that lie. And that's what the church is doing by not preaching women's nature, not calling, hey, women, you have bad nature too. We're all sinful. We all fall short of the glory of God. The Bible doesn't say only men fall short of the glory of God and women are like angels. No, we all fall short. So if we all fall short, then we should talk about that shortcoming together. Okay, women's shortcoming, men's shortcoming, but we don't do that. The church doesn't want to do that. It doesn't benefit them. Why? Because the blue pilled, if you want to go red pill talk, the blue pill men, the beta men, see it as a benefit if we don't talk about it. No, 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 no. If you just become a better servant leader, your wife will be submissive to you. No, 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 no. If you're just a good husband, and because I remember literally sitting there in these pastoral, I'm doing counseling as a youth pastor, as the second pastor with my pastor there. And he's telling the guy, like, look, if you're just a better servant leader, if your wife, you're having problems with porn, well, it's not because your wife's not putting out to you. No, no, no. We're not going to talk about why she's not having sex with you. We're going to talk about your sin. And your sin is your pornography. We're not going to talk about the fact that in, 1 Corinthians 7, it talks about do not, separate from each other for a long period of time. It says, if you do so for a time of prayer and fasting so that you can may join together so the thing doesn't tempt you. We're not going to talk about what she's doing. We're going to talk about the fact that you have a porn problem. Where did that porn problem come from? Well, maybe it came from the fact that his wife wasn't putting out. Maybe that opened the door, but we don't do that anymore. And we're afraid to do that. And until the churches decide to do that, we're going to see the continuation of this rhetoric, and we're going to see the continuation of this whole narrative and this ostracization of men from the church. And you wonder why men leave the church. Well, because the church, again, as Pastor Joel Webman said in that video, it's not made for men.
So
it's the simps and the cucks joining forces with the feminists and then booting all of the alpha males out.
I have a question. So one last question I'm going to end on. How do you spot a fake tradcon or a fake pastor / priest?
I would. There's a list. I think there's a list. All right. Ask them if women are allowed to preach in the church. Right. If they say yes, of course, God uses all things. God uses, there's one. 2, ask them what submission means. All right. And those 2 are my 2 big tells. If they tell me that men are supposed to submit to their wives, right, and women could lead the church, that to me, that's heresy.
Just be like, what were you on Grindr? Was that your profile on Grindr? And then notice if they start sweating and getting nervous, then get out of that church.
Yeah, submission is the big issue. There are a lot of, over the last 2 years, there's a lot of positive momentum in the counter-feminist Catholic territory, but there's a lot of Fugazi counter-feminists. Like I'm sure there's good things in the book, but this domestic extremist book by Peachy Keenan, there's another one coming out later in the summer by another Catholic that claimed to be anti-feminist, because I feel like my wife and I in the Catholic world took a lot of the shrapnel the last 3 years. We really went after hard, but the Overton window came a little hard. But so they're admitting now more feminism's bad. Women should be at home. They're still not admitting wifely submission is the main mark of an anti-feminist. That is to say, of a Christian. So ask about that. I was hoping we were going to talk about the red pill a little bit today, Pearl, but maybe that's for another time. We should talk about the red pill and its relationship to Christianity at some point. Rachel talked about.
I love that conversation, Tim. Me and you could do that anytime because I love that topic.
Let's do it.
I got
Rachel,
a little more time if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, let's roll with
there's
it.
a lot. There's a lot there. Like Rachel was talking about my friend Will Nolan, who I have me, him, Elliot Holst, Dr. Michael Robillard. We do a Friday podcast called CMask, Christian Masculinism. And there's a lot of really important cross-fertilization that needs to happen with the red pill guys. They need to read some of the books by women like Rachel or my wife, and they need to watch Christian Masculinism podcasts, or they need to watch this show. And I think a lot of them will, because there's some important stuff that needs to be said between us and them.
Like what?
Whew. Well, it's a whole show, but I mean, like, basically that they can be right about everything. Cobra Tate can be right about everything he's saying about what's wrong with women, but there's a fundamental cognitive dissonance between saying, look, a high value woman is a woman that guards her virginity, that looks at Pearl's pyramid of high value women, which she did yesterday, which is hilarious. That's awesome. You can say that, but the cognitive dissonance where you say, we should run through hoes now, and it's basically natural for a man to do, but at the same time it's good to value high value women, is obviously like caveman retarded. You can't maintain those two propositions at once. You can't maintain the proposition of contraception and fornication and still decry feminism. Contraception and fornication on a wide scale, everything Jay's talking about, Tavistock, CIA, waterfalling this down, that was their whole goal. These are the conditions for the possibility of feminism, is contraception and fornication. Mm-hmm. When you talk about like celibacy, chastity, these things, fasting, there's a lot of common ground between celibacy, chastity, and fasting from food. Every young person you deal with, Pearl, when you go on whatever and all those shows, they want to look good, they lift, they might have even embraced periodic fasting because it helps them look good. But I would just ask them, look at the important overlap between the metabolic system, our eating system, our gastro system, and the reproductive system. Both of them have pleasure endorphin release, but pleasure is not the goal. The goal of the metabolism is to take in calories in an efficient way, just like the goal of the human reproductive system is to reproduce, right? And the fact that pleasure is what usually motivates you or I to go get a meal, it's what motivates most husbands and wives to have sex. They wind up with more and more kids. I have 7. I know that doesn't prove that that's the goal of the system. And some fat ass that eats for pleasure exclusively has confused those goals. And most red pill guys make fun of soft, fat, cream puff guys that sit on the couch and eat and have mistaken pleasure as the purpose of metabolism, but they won't apply that to the reproductive system. And that's because they bought the feminist principles of contraception and fornication, which absolutely denude the philosophy and make high value women into hoes. It's an important conversation. I think you're the one to have it. I think so. Like, a woman like Rachel's amazing. I think my wife should talk to you about this, and then the dudes need to talk about it too.
Well, when I talk about guys cheating, I don't think it's all right, or like having multiple women. I just think women date guys like Chris Brown and are like, why wasn't he faithful? I'm like, well, I don't know how you didn't see this one coming, Diane. You know what I mean? It's like
that is true. Women will chase after the men that they know every other woman on earth is chasing after, who's getting panties thrown at him, and then suddenly expect that if he marries it, like, they'll be the side girl, marry the dude, and then be like, I can't believe he cheated on me. That is true. And I say to women all the time, you all think you want like this top 0.5% guy. You don't want that. If you want attention, if you want exclusivity, if you want all these things, a good Christian masculine man will make you very happy, but don't try to pick like an Andrew Tate, obviously, if you want, like, if that's what you want.
Well, I think so we have to understand, sympathy.
I got no sympathy. These girls will like come on my show and they'll tell me they're dating the same YouTuber, entertainer, like guys that are not known for their faithfulness. And I just got zero sympathy where it's like, okay, if you go and make a baby with him, you might as well stay at that point. Like, what did you think was going to happen? He wasn't faithful to you before. He's not going to now. I'm kind of like, you made your bed. You might as well stick it out. You know,
My thing is like the red pill is a source of information. What you do with that information is primarily up to you. All right. Everything else, like the red pill tells you what is. Here is male's nature. Here's female's nature. This is just what is, right? Biologically, right? And Christianity, Catholicism, Tradcon ways, this way, this group, this blue pill, those are all prescriptions on how to address the problems of the intersexual dynamics between men and women. Everything else is a prescription. So Andrew Tate telling you guys, to get with a bunch of women, or Myron saying you need to have 50 bodies before you get married with a woman. Those are prescriptions. Those are not red pill. Those are prescriptions from people that hold these red pill beliefs or views. They think that's going to be the best practice that they think. Those are prescriptions. We have to understand that the red pill in itself, the core of the red pill itself, is not a prescription. It's a praxeology. It's a study of intersexual dynamics and human nature. Now, what you do with that information, like, okay, women are hypergamous, guys like to be competitive. Okay, so guys take hypergamy, for instance, and be like, oh, well, we're all ruined. All these hoes are hypergamous. None of them can be loyal or faithful. And it's just like, no, how about, you take that understanding and then be her best hypergamous choice every day. Be leveling up yourself and become that better man if you want this woman in your life. Why don't you do the work to be that best option she always sees? That's how I take hypergamy. It's like, choose what you want to take the information, but then come up with your own prescription for your own life. And that's where you get the Jordan Peterson, here's your 12 steps of life. You got Andrew Tate saying that if you do it this way, your life will be better. You got guys like Doug Wilson saying you do it this way. You got Joel Webman saying you do it this way. These are all prescriptions that stem from understanding the red pill.
Have you seen my note? There's no such thing as a good woman video. Have you seen it?
I have.
Have you seen it, Tim?
I haven't seen that one. No.
Okay. So I lay out this chart here. Okay. Wait, can you guys see it? Basically, the 50 bodies. Now, this isn't a moral thing. Now, and I'd like to say I do not promote this, but I understand how they got there. We all know that hoe that has pulled one over on a naive guy. All right, maybe I just do, but we've all seen that girl. You're like, what the? Like, how did you know what I mean? And the 50 bodies is just for guys to get enough experience so they know the difference between a hoe and not a hoe. And typically women want men that are more sexually experienced. And so it's like, to me, that's more of just a reaction to what the women are doing. It's like, because women have all the power first, right? And we pick non-monogamy first, because we have the more option to do it and then we do it. So it's like, how are the guys supposed to know the difference between these predatory women and the good girls? Some guys feel like the only way to do that is to get a bunch of experience with women. That might not be your conclusion, but I kind of understand how they got there.
I agree with everything you've said, like all show long. And I almost always, I think I 99% agree with you on Twitter, but part of the psyop seems to be this hypergamy point about women. Like I just began, because of a raging need, a matchmaking site with my friends, not Catholic dating, but matchmaking. Right. And we were trying to match 15 like trad chads with 15 high quality virgins. We got so many applications from women. We got a lot from men that we had to like blow up our numbers. It's called Return, RETVRN.US. And it's been amazing. There are so many amazing,
I have a question.
Beautiful virgins out there who are 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah.
How do you know they're virgins?
You could tell when you talk to them. These are bookish people. They go to the TLM that are. If you were interviewing them, you would understand what we're talking about. A lot of these people are, though they're beautiful, they were raised on either like farms. This sounds kind of funny to people out there that live in the city, but they were either raised on farms or doing the co-op thing. You could tell, and they were homeschooled. This is the point.
But
Don't
you
go to
can't
college
know for sure, right? Yes,
you can
or
never
no?
know for sure.
Know for sure. Okay.
Unless you, yeah.
Okay.
But
so, and I think that's their response. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I'm just saying I kind of understand how they got there. Because
of
at the end
course,
of the day, they could say that, but we won't actually know.
yeah, but you could tell when you talk to a hoe. You just said that, and I can tell. And I was, I reverted to the church in my late 20s. I was lucky enough to have met my wife when we were, she was still in her teens, and we were friends through the entire time. You could tell. And similarly, you can tell when the girl was homeschooled, when she either went to a very faithful small college or not, when she knows the faith well, she sits around, reads. You could get a good sense of it. And let me just say, it's been shocking.
Right, but like, wouldn't you know more if you have more experience with women? Wouldn't you be able to tell more? Like, wouldn't you have a better indication if you have experience?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
and that's how they get that conclusion. Not saying that's correct, like that's the right way to do it. I certainly don't advocate for that, but I can kind of like I think it's more of a response to the women because we don't pick monogamy.
But see, experience doesn't mean sex, and I think that's what gets lost in all this is that you need to have a bunch of experience with women. That doesn't mean you need to sleep with all of them. You could just being around women, seeing women's nature, understanding women in that sense, and understanding how they show desire and genuine desire to you, through experience with them in proximity, doesn't mean you have to have sex with them. And that's where I push, like, this is where I push back with Myron, like, dude, like, I get it. I get what you're trying to say, but what you're telling guys is go out there, bang these girls, add notch counts to all these girls, and then bring them on your show and tell them why they're not going to get married because you added a notch count to them. It doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So you can gain experience without sex. That's all I'm saying.
95% of those guys.
Do you think it's equally effective? Do you think being around women is equally as effective to understanding female nature as sleeping with and dating a bunch of women?
I think if you do it correctly.
Like, who do you think knows more? A guy that's a virgin and sleeps with nobody, or a guy that's a player and sleeps with 50 women?
All the guy that's a player knows how to do is get you in bed.
Which usually involves alcohol. Well,
exactly. Some sort of distraction, all right, some form of manipulation in game aspect that gets you there in the first place. So does he really know women, or does he know how to get women naked?
Who knows more? I need you to answer the who knows more, 50 women or 0 women?
It depends on how the conversation goes. I know how to spot a fake trad Catholic, right? If someone's like, yo, Tim, I'm a traditional Roman Catholic. I'm like, okay, what's your daily devotional? And we had, by the way, Pearl, we had some feminists apply, and we weeded them out really fast. This is about conversation. If someone claims to be a pro MMA fighter or a pro race car driver, and you're like, okay, what kind of wheels do you use? And they don't know. You weed them out. Someone that's like, do you know what a novena is? Do you know what the Angelus is? Okay, you're not a trad. You can. So there are other checks. You're not really checking anything when you're some drunk dude that's running through chubby whores at nightclubs. You're not even talking. So it is.
Yeah, the other thing I think about as a mom of a son myself is that it's very risky advice to tell a young man to just go sleep with a bunch of girls. The odds that he's going to
either these days
he'll get falsely accused of something. A girl will say she's pregnant and it belongs to him. And I'm doing a piece on paternity fraud right now, and the amount of paternity fraud out there is staggering. The amount of false accusations, the likelihood he could catch an STD from a girl who lied about, you know,
1 out of
whether or not
3. It's mad out there.
It's bad. So like I would say just from a risk perspective, telling men to run through 50 women before they settle down is extremely risky.
I'm not saying it's the best point of view, but I'm just saying I understand how they got there. Because
I get
I do think there's a lot of naive guys in the church that do.
Oh yeah, but my thing is like, yo, get experience, but experience doesn't mean getting in bed with them. The way I look is like, guys, look, your seed, that's your legacy. Do you want to water down your legacy with some dumb hoe from the club? Like, you know, be careful who you put your seed in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to live with that baby with the no head, no brain, no, you know, all retarded looking just because her mom was hot. You don't want that. So be selective. I think guys need to be more selective of who they put their dick in than women need to be selective of who they open their legs for. You know, seriously.
Sounding very trans for a second there.
Yeah, but
I want some retarded babies. That's all I'm talking about. I know. I like that idea, like the babies being retarded. I'm down for that. I'm just trolling, dude. I'm just joking.
Bro, like, why do you think? Why do you think
I just thought it was funny.
Why do you think that guys? Because I know I talk to these guys every day. I counsel them every day. It's a huge part of what we do. Guys go to the club. They get with chubby, pleather laden whores, and then the guys start getting attached because they're betas. But these are guys with huge belt notches. They're not Andrew Tate. They're the betas, and in many cases, the gammas that consume Andrew Tate's content. And they're like, bro, I just got paid. And you're like, what's your paycheck? They're like $250. And they spend it all on one night, and they get with some, you know, 2.5, some drunk 2.5. And then they wind up, and she's chubby usually in pleather, and they wind up chasing her around. And they do that until the girl, low quality woman, ends up giving them the shove off. And then they do it again 3 or 4 weeks later after bothering this chick. Those are the guys with the high body counts. They're not Andrew Tate. He's anomalous. Okay. He's got, you know, millions upon millions in the bank. It's a game changer. He says it. He's Cobra Tate, and he's different from the guys that listen to him. The real guys in real life that have high body counts like that are pathetic shells of men in most cases. And it's really sad. And they are it's a product of them gaming and being counter gamed by female, but it's a psyop.
Well, it's just like, you know, it's like the man that profits the world gains the whole world, loses his soul, right? You're chasing the pussy. When you chase the pussy and you put that pussy on a pedestal like that, you're gonna do whatever you can to get to it. You're gonna sell your soul for it. And that's the problem with a lot of men, is that they will give up the world for 7 minutes in heaven. Okay, you know, like, and it's like, why don't you see your value more than that? And it's like, guys that are of value would know that I'm not going to get with the girl that's not of value. You know, like, does that make sense? Like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you want to water down your legacy? Why would you want to taint your heritage? And then I'm not trying to sound like, you know, Fuentes here. I mean, you know, but I mean by that, it's like, why put yourself in a risk and have a legacy with somebody that's not of value? Because half the dudes that bang these chicks, they would never walk out with them in public at night or broad daylight. All right, it's 3 a.m. This heifer will do. Here we go. And he's not going to talk about it. So think about it. Does their notch counts really count if you won't brag about the girl in public? Like, you know?
Yeah, and I think average guys are going to get like, the game stuff works for those like really attractive, like higher level guys. And for them, stacking up 50 bodies might not be as big of a deal. Like, we're not talking